Apple CEO Tim Cook is doing some damage control in China. At least that is how it appears. Cook took a trip to Beijing this week where he met a Chinese regulator after Apple pulled an app from its app store that allowed protesters in Hong Kong to track police movements. And Tim Cook has been taking some criticism for appearing to bend the knee to China on this issue. Might remind you of a different news story going on right now. Yahoo Finance tech editor Dan Howley here to give us more.
I like the Game of Thrones reference. Bend the knee.
Sort of works.
Yes. Yeah.
What is going on here? And I guess maybe we should start with, because I hadn't actually seen this, the pulling of this app. So first Apple pulled the app, and that was Apple's choice. And now Tim Cook traveled to China.
Apple's choice,
right.
kind of, So this app basically was a way for protesters in Hong Kong, or as the Chinese state media would refer to them as, rioters. But the protesters in Hong Kong essentially would be able to see where police are, so they would be able to avoid police barricades, areas where police might be rounding up protesters or trying to crack down on protesters. So Apple got kind of thrown into this firestorm because the People's Daily, which is the Communist Party's mouthpiece, essentially said that this was Apple aiding and abetting rioters. So what Apple did was they pulled the app because the People's Daily is, again, the Communist Party's mouthpiece, and that's basically the party saying, get rid of the app. They pulled the app from Hong Kong, which is kind of its own territory as far as Apple's concerned, but they didn't want to upset China. So they pulled the app. A lot of protesters in Hong Kong essentially said this is their way of bowing to China. So did everyone essentially in the West. Apple responded to that saying, look, we're protecting protesters because if the police if the police presence is known by some potential criminals, then the criminals will go where the police aren't and rob people. They also said that some people were potentially assaulting police officers because they knew where they were. Right. So that's really kind of where Apple officially stood on it. Now, this is the company's way now kind of coming out and saying, look, we're sorry.
Sorry to whom?
To China, basically.
Right. That seems like a lot of twisting and contorting to make their decision make sense. But isn't this really a story about how important China is, therefore, to Apple and why they...
Which is playing out with a lot of businesses.
Right. So, and the other thing was they pulled the Quartz Media app from mainland China.
QZ.
It's still available in Hong Kong. But that was interesting because Quartz was also blocked on websites as well. But the fact that they pulled it from the App Store, this isn't something that Apple is new to either, by the way. A couple of years ago, they pulled virtual private network apps that allowed people to circumvent the Great Firewall there, which blocks people from seeing overseas websites or websites that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want them to see. Apple has done stuff like this. They've also located their iCloud accounts fully in China, as well as the encryption keys. And privacy rights folks say that that just gives the Chinese police the ability to go in and unlock anyone's iCloud account and find out exactly what they've been doing online. So it's a lot of Apple having to bend the knee to China to ensure that that market is still open to them because, as you said, Kristen, this is an incredibly important market to them. One drop there is massive for the company's stock price.
Now, by the way, isn't it possible to believe both things, that China and Tim Cook are in bed together in the sense that Apple cannot remove itself from China, the business there is so big, and that, yes, Tim Cook very clearly bending to China, but also that Apple legitimately felt that that app that allowed you to track the police whereabouts was unsafe?
It can be both, but I don't think that their reasoning for doing it actually really jives or really plays. I mean, unless there's a lot of news reports, not just coming from a propaganda paper, but if there's a lot of news reports saying that protesters are actually going out and assaulting officers, then I could understand that. But those haven't been the reports. It's actually the other way around.
It's interesting because, as I said, this is not something that is new to Apple. But this firestorm kind of came up because it followed the NBA and their reaction to China. And it's kind of put more scrutiny on tech companies in China. Now, the likes of Facebook and Google, usually Facebook is the one under fire. They have no presence in China. And Mark Zuckerberg yesterday basically kind of subtweeted Apple and said,
it's an easy one for
him. They were like, we avoid China because we want to make sure that we don't have to bend to their will. But they really aren't in China because China won't let them there.
So. Nice gimme, though. Nice gimme in the tit for tat between
good
Apple and
layout,
Facebook.
yeah.
All right, Howley, thanks so much. We'll
you.
keep watching that story.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.